Hard to believe it's episode 10 already. It feels like only yesterday I was planning to reboot this channel and brainstorming ideas for a series of videos on spiritual exploration. And now here we are at the end of the series, and I can't help but wonder, what have I said? What advice have I given? What insights have I offered? Let's recap. Whether you're stuck in a dead-end job or dysfunctional relationship, plagued by stress and anxiety, or just bored with life and looking for something more, the solution to your so-called problems lies within you. Not in your physical body, it's not like hiding in your spleen or anything like that, but inside your spiritual body. Most of the challenges and dilemmas we perceive out in the world are actually rooted in our beliefs, in our attitude, and in our way of looking at things. And so the way to fix your problems, improve your life, and overcome the obstacles in your way is to first fix your beliefs, improve your way of thinking, and then overcome the ego, which is the number one obstacle that is in all of our ways. The outer is a reflection of the inner. We see in the world what we carry in our hearts and in our minds. If you change the content, the things you see out in the world will change as well, revealing previously unseen dimensions. That's it. The last 10 episodes in a nutshell. And if you think that's good, Kierkegaard does even better, summarizing the whole dang thing in a single sentence. A person who as a physical being is always turned outward, thinking that their happiness lies outside, finally turns inward and discovers that the source is within. So if it can be summarized so succinctly, why did I spend 10 videos talking about it? Well, because at the onset of this series, I invited you to journey into yourself, and invitations require direction. Imagine I invite you over to my house for dinner, but I don't tell you the date, time, or give you my address. Not going to be a very useful invitation. That's why I tried to give you context and basic guidance, so that you can accept my invitation should you choose to do so. That's why I used metaphors to describe the journey within in more concrete terms. That's why I compared the psyche to a physical place, to an underground network of caves inhabited by strange creatures who are guarding precious treasures. The strange creatures represent beliefs, values, desires, and aversions, while the precious treasure, on the other hand, represents insight, wisdom, and the qualities you admire most about yourself. Qualities you may not even know you possess. I also describe the inner landscape as a story you tell yourself and believe. A story about the way things are and the way they should be, in which you are just one of many characters. I suggested that by peeling back the layers of this story and analyzing it objectively, you actually make the transition from helpless character to empowered author. I also spent an obscene amount of time talking about epistemology and our ability to know something, or even anything, with absolute certainty. And I suggested that spiritual exploration is best conducted in a spirit of humility, with a beginner's mind, and under the assumption that everything we think we know could quite possibly be wrong. And then in the most recent episode, I shared 2 practices that might help you with your inward expeditions: mindfulness and the Socratic method of inquiry. Mindfulness sheds light on the mind's ongoing activities, while the Socratic method helps you to analyze the value and validity of these activities and integrate anything useful into a new way of seeing, doing, and being. A synthesis of all the valuable things you've discovered while exploring the inner landscape. Just so we're clear, the objective of spiritual exploration is to identify and eradicate all invalid and worthless beliefs, erroneous assumptions, and unrealistic expectations. Why, you ask? Because these things are the number one source of suffering in our lives. More importantly, they distort and obscure deeper universal truths that are all around us in abundance. I know this sounds crazy, but that's why you gotta try it for yourself. Now, I recently mentioned that spiritual exploration is merely the first step in a much larger process. Now, of course, I can't predict how this process will unfold for you, but I can tell you that for me, the fact-finding stage quickly evolved into a mental and emotional purge. I threw every belief I discovered onto the bonfire of inquiry, and to my surprise, only a tiny fraction of them survived the heat. The vast majority of them turned to ash. I salvaged whatever survived the heat, and I fused these elements together into a clear, purposeful way of seeing the world and myself in it. As a result, I've become a more peaceful individual, more joyful, more resilient, and outwardly far more effective at conducting my daily affairs and performing my daily duties. And I'm not done by any means. I'm confident that I still have a whole lot of stuff to throw into the fire, which is why I am still engaged in the process of spiritual exploration. And the deeper into myself I go, the more I realize that the depth is fathomless, an abyss that connects my personal psyche to the shared consciousness of all humankind, and further still, to the anima mundi, or cosmic consciousness, that permeates, generates, and sustains all things. There is no final destination to spiritual exploration. It's more like a spiral staircase that keeps going ever upward, giving you different vistas on the same subject. When we engage in it in a deliberate and conscious manner, the process yields new wisdom, new insight, and new revelations about this thing we call reality. And in turn, these treasures help us to live rich, meaningful lives, full of joy, wonder, and awe. So there you have it. That's all I can say on the subject, or at least that's all I can say about it for now. I'm ready to move on to different topics. And with the state of the world as it is today, I feel like my timing couldn't be better. The need for a personal code, guiding principles, or philosophy of living has never been greater. And so my goal is to share my personal code, my beliefs, talk about how I arrived at them, and more importantly, tell you how they benefit me in concrete and measurable ways, especially in times of uncertainty and crisis. As you know, I consider myself to be a modern mystic. Over the course of the next however long, I'm going to explain to you what I mean by this term. And I'm going to share some resources for those of you out there who are looking to forge their own path as I have done. So stay tuned. The next phase of The Outsider's Perspective begins now.